at a much higher, more sophisticated level. That's what's so terrifying. So my first aha moment to really understanding the level of adulteration in the world of essential oils was in 2001.
Welcome to the Experience Wellness Podcast with hosts Rebecca Hintze and Laura Jacobs. Here you'll find the ultimate guide to living healthier, feeling happier, and thriving like never before.
Hello and welcome to the Experience Wellness Podcast. I'm Rebecca Hintze and I'm here with my co-host Laura Jacobs. I'm so excited though about our guest today. She's one of my most favorite people, somebody I want to grow up to be like. We are going to be joined by Emily Wright, who is a dear friend of ours. Laura, you've known Emily for so long, and I'll let you go ahead and do the full introduction, but just know that Emily has been a dear friend of mine also for 16 years and has changed my life in so many ways I cannot even say.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to introduce Emily. And yes, our friendship runs deep and long. And this is a woman who truly needs no introduction inside of the doTERRA world. Everybody knows the name, the woman, the legend, Emily Wright. And at the same time, sometimes we try to dehumanize people that we aspire to be. And I would like to just let you know that Emily's a human and she's real. And that's what I love about her is she's so genuine and so authentic and so unapologetic and unyielding to stay true to who she is and her mission on this planet. She is a mother. She is a grandmother. So like so many of us, she's balancing a real life. She has a real life. And she's been all over the world with sourcing and spreading the good news of doTERRA. She started as a very young executive in some very powerful and prominent positions with a previous company where she really, shall we say, cut her teeth when it comes to essential oils and this industry, and is certainly the better person for having gone through the experience, because contrast is truly a great teacher, which really brings us to our topic today, Emily, and in speaking about, what is this doTERRA thing in comparison to anything else out there when it comes to essential oils? Welcome. We're so excited to have you with us today.
Oh, it is such an honor. And any day that I get to spend with Becky Hintze and Laura Jacobs is a good day. I think we have a long history together, and there is such a kinship where we can talk about anything and everything for hours on end. And yes, our friendship runs deep. So it is an honor to be with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you know, Emily, I want to have this podcast be, I told you this before we get on, the whistleblower podcast. And I say that because I feel like my experience with doTERRA over the last 16 years and learning about the essential oil industry, there's a lot to whistleblow here. There's a lot of adulteration going on. And the broadcaster me has wanted to tell this story and does. Like I talk about this every time I get a chance. There's the corruption, and you know it. You have experienced it, and this is really what led you on the mission to create doTERRA. And I'd love to just dive right in and talk about that. Will you just talk about and tell us what's going on out there when it comes to the sourcing of essential oils?
Absolutely. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about, and said, how many hours do we have on this podcast to talk about it? But I started in the world of essential oils almost 30 years ago, if you can believe it. I was a very young mother. I had a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old when I was introduced. And I had no idea what essential oils were, but I had such a fantastic experience with my young children that I had to learn more. And what I've learned over the course of my nearly 30 years in using essential oils as a mother, as a grandmother, as someone that has shared essential oils with people for all around the world, is quality matters, purity matters, potency matters. And so I think a lot of people have heard about essential oils because today they're scented in everything, right? You look at your shampoos, your cosmetics, your cleaning products, and everything will say, with lavender, with rosemary, with peppermint. And I think people have just kind of compartmentalized them and said, oh, well, they're all created the same. So if it's peppermint or lavender, this must be an all natural good product. And it really terrifies me because of what I've come to know about the essential oil industry and the level of adulteration and contamination and manipulation that happens within that world, all due to greed, all right? Because it's all about the almighty dollar of what that shampoo or cleaning product can be doing to you. If it says peppermint and it's not actually a real peppermint, it's nothing more than chemicals. And so you're disrupting your endocrine system, you're causing harm to the body. Your body doesn't know what this chemical is. And so there's a process that happens in the body where the body has to protect itself from, right, this toxic ingredient that you've put into it. Versus, let's take a natural peppermint or a natural lavender, where your body goes, I know you, right? We've evolved upon this earth together. I know exactly what to do with you. And there's an intelligence that comes as we take something that has come from the plant kingdom, where it's kept pure and intact. And knowing that everything that was produced for us in the plant kingdom, and taking that essence, that essential oil, there's our body knows what to do with it. It was designed for us for this time. And so it's important to keep it pure. But there's also so much to say about where that plant was grown, right? What type of soil conditions did it grow in? What type of climate? Are we actually growing a plant that has the chemical profile that's going to do the most good for our body, so that when we take that peppermint, it is exactly what we'd expect from that peppermint to do so much good for our body. So this is why this topic is something I'm very passionate about. And for this very reason is why doTERRA was born 16 years ago.
Wow, rich, so rich. Thank you for that. So many things come to mind with everything you've said. There's a couple seeds you planted in there where we could go down some serious rabbit holes. Just this
Yes.
idea of evolution, that plants and humans have evolved together. I know some of the stories that I've come to really love and embrace through the science department at doTERRA is there has to be something at play here that's larger than all of us. When you look at how perfectly the chemistry of oils match our needs today, like that in and of itself is an incredible story to tell. And also just the body's ability to recognize, I know you. I love that you set it up. I recognize you. Whereas another chemical, we're like, who are you? And what am I supposed to do with you? Right? These are profound ideas.
Right. Yes. When you think about where the plants are grown, let's take a frankincense as an example. Frankincense grows in some of the harshest climates on the planet. And they've tried to transplant them from, thousands of years ago. Queen of Sheba, right? She tried to transplant them in Egypt. It didn't work. And when you think about the climate in which they grow, that's where you gain this resiliency. And so when our cells go, come on in, like I know exactly what to do with you. There's such beauty that happens with that, and we feel that, right? As we smell these pure oils, as we put them on our body, we feel a shift, and that is powerful. And that's why not only ensuring the quality, the purity, but also having that efficacy, which has to do with the potency, which has to do with where it is grown, is so important. Which means you have to go to source. You have to know exactly where your oils are coming from to make sure that that quality stays true all the way through the process.
Emily, I heard you on a separate interview that Laura did with you years ago, where you talked about an experience of going into a laboratory in France. I don't know if this rings a bell, where you realized that there is this culture of adulteration going on, that lavender didn't necessarily come from lavender. I would love for you to share that experience, if you don't mind. And maybe comment as you do share on what the climate looks like today, because I know you recorded that a few years ago and your experience was also in the past, but today, is all that corruption still happening?
Oh, at a much higher, more sophisticated level. That's what's so terrifying. So my first aha moment to really understanding the level of adulteration in the world of essential oils was in 2001. Was my first international trip. I didn't get on a plane until I was 25 years old. And so today I've definitely made up for time, lost time when I was young. So going over to Europe was a big deal. And I really wanted to see where lavender came from. So we toured through Provence. We'd seen these beautiful lavender fields. And then I went in the laboratory of the broker for the company that I worked for at the time. And they just asked me, Emily, tell us what type of aromatic profile and chemical profile of lavender you'd like us to create for you. And my mind was just blown. I said, what do you mean? I just want the lavender that we just saw out in these beautiful lavender fields. And they just smiled and they said, don't you understand that we can create any lavender that you want? We can hit any price point you want. We can hit any aromatic or chemical profile that you want, and no one will know a thing. And this is back in 2001, where really the only thing being done to analyze essential oils was gas chromatography. We hadn't gone into mass spectroscopy yet. It was really just GC. And and so that would just give you the constituents that are found within the oil, but oftentimes they wouldn't know what many of the different peaks were. And so it'd be just more of a general analysis. So it's really easy back then for them to be able to manipulate an essential oil or what really was a cocktail of different chemicals to look like an essential oil and be sold as a pure lavender. And so you fast forward to today. I get to travel all over the world, and another experience that's really stuck in my mind as I see these different distilleries and these different laboratories was the time I was in India, and I saw a 3-story still, the chimney on the still, and I said, "Help me understand why we have a 4-story chimney on the still." And they said, "Oh, it's for us to isolate the compounds." Well, why would you want to isolate the compounds? And they're creating cocktails so that you can take cypress is a less expensive oil, so it's an easy one to explain. So it's going to be high in alpha pinene. Well, what oil do we love that's also high in alpha pinene? Frankincense, right? And the king of oils. But there's a very, very high price point for frankincense. So it's easy for them to put this cocktail together, and even blending natural compounds together to make it look like something different. So you might say, well, is it okay if we're using natural compounds? They are coming from plants, so is that okay? And I guess you have to ask yourself, does your body recognize the difference? We talked earlier about humans and plants evolving upon this planet together, right? There really has been an evolution as we grow up together and we gain a resiliency together. There is an intelligence that exists in those plants, and their chemical makeup is very specific, right? That's why they were created that way, for a very specific purpose. So if you're pulling apart from here and apart from here and apart from here, will it have that synergy that we would expect to have as we put it on our body, as we inhale it in, as we ingest it? And the answer is no. We know that, right? We've tested that, and we know that it's not true. It's important to stay true to what the plants do best, and we honor that. We honor that stewardship. So today, when you look at that level of adulteration, contamination, manipulation that's all happening within the essential oil world, we probably have the most robust state-of-the-art analytical laboratory that exists for essential oils in the world. We have the best scientists, we have the best technicians. We've done that so that we know exactly what is in every single bottle. That is key. That is important. When you think about Dr. Setchell just alone, who oversees our analytical laboratory, he's published over 100 papers on essential oils. And I asked the question today, since the beginning of doTERRA, when you run the analysis, we run many different analysis on our essential oils, and you get the little peaks through the chromatograph that tell you what's in that oil. And I asked how many different peaks to constituents, molecules have been unidentified before doTERRA got involved. And they said, oh, wow, we don't even have a count. They first said hundreds, and they said, no, thousands, that no other laboratory in the world have been able to identify. And so doTERRA has been able to identify, okay, this is a new constituent that has not been identified before. What is it? And so based on the chemical structure, they're able to give it a name, and then you give it a common name. And so that then goes into the IUPAC naming. And so that's something that's very important. So when you're looking at an oil, let's say vetiver as a great example, or myrrh as another great example. Vetiver is so complex. You have over 1,000 different constituents in vetiver, and you have all of these sesquiterpenes and sesquiterpenoids that haven't even been identified. And so, a scientist, a technician may look at that and say, "Oh yeah, everything looks good. Like it checks the box. It has the 5 main constituents in the right percentages that we would expect to have from vetiver. So everything's good." Versus doTERRA's scientists that are going to look at this and say, "Wait a minute. What is this constituent? Should it belong here? Does it belong to this plant?" Yeah, that's very, very important. And sometimes you'll have various constituents. They have different chirality. So chirality is kind of like a left hand, right hand. So from a molecular structure, they're going to be identical, right? They look the same, but it's left hand, right hand. So each plant has a very specific fingerprint. So lavender is going to be a certain percentage of left and right. That's how we know linalool has come from lavender versus linalool coming from coriander is going to be a different ratio. So we run all of the chirality testing. Before we purchase any oils, we run a chirality testing on every single batch so that we know every single constituent came from that particular plant. Because the world of essential oils has become so sophisticated, we have to know what we have. Another thing that is very key to what we do today, there hasn't been an ability to really test for pesticides, herbicides. Usually the molecular structure is larger, and so it's not going to come through the distillation if there have been any pesticides or herbicides used, and either on the plant or near the fields where the plants grew. But we want to test. We want to make absolutely certain that there is no contamination at all whatsoever. I mean, we are becoming more aware of the effects of glyphosate, for example. Do you want glyphosate in your lavender? I don't. No, thank you. And so you have to have very specific analytical ability to test for that. So you have to have an LCMS triple quad and a GC triple quad. This very expensive equipment. I mean, just with this equipment alone, you're talking nearly $1 million to do this, not let alone to have the scientists who are trained to know exactly what to look for. doTERRA runs this. Like when you look at essential oils anywhere else, they're not going to be testing for this. They don't have the equipment. They don't have the ability. We have to know what we have because these are oils that we depend on for our family's health, and we feel that responsibility for everyone else. So purity matters.
2 things come to mind. One, to Becky's earlier question, where are we today by way of adulteration? I would imagine your minds are fairly blown as you look at what they're trying to sneak in under the radar, knowing that most brokers who are distributing the majority of oils on the planet outside of doTERRA, what they're sneaking in because people aren't doing the kind of testing that would ever reveal what's actually in there. And that without that kind of sophisticated equipment, which most people aren't going to spend $1 million to own a machine like that, there's no way they could know. And so sometimes we look at our competitors as liars, and you know what? Some of them are. They are blatant liars. They know exactly what they're doing. And others, I had a friend whose friend is selling essential oils, and she said to her, she had her oils tested. She said, "Do you want to know what's under the hood of your oils?" And she said, "No, my broker already tests them. I'm fine." And denied knowing, the fact of the matter was her oils weren't quality. So one, again, 2 thoughts come to mind. One, the fact that it's kind of mind-blowing to see the level of creativity to be deceptive. And without the level of testing that you've mentioned, it's literally impossible to detect that. And on the flip side, as you talked about building, okay, so is it so bad if I got my alpha pinene from Cyprus? I mean, it's alpha pinene, right? It's from a plant and I've built this thing. But when you talk about vetiver having 1,000 different constituents, many of which are not even yet identified. And what is it? Over 60% of vetiver is sesquiterpenes or something like unto it, which makes it a phenomenal brain oil, which we know that it is. One of the things, PJ Hanks is somebody I get to work with closely in doTERRA, and she's made essential oil chemistry her passion. And she taught me something that I think most people don't understand. I'd love for you to speak to this because I don't think we comprehend the value. Because again, all these other people are just looking at these 5 major constituents and saying, check the boxes, it's all there, not appreciating the so-called subchemistry. So this was her analogy. She said, even though an oil may only have 1% of a sesquiterpene, she said, picture that it's like this. And so I took the story in my mind, and this is my experience. I'm at the Japan convention. There's about 3,500 people there that year. Dr. Hill walks in. So by percentage, he's 1 out of 3,500 people. Okay. That's like 1 in a bunch, like big deal, and other bodies in the room. But it's Dr. Hill, right? So the sesquiterpene, what she taught me is Dr. Hill is like the sesquiterpene. It's very special. And so if you're building aromas and building oils, you don't have those special ingredients, the unbeknownst to us, the extra 1,000 that people aren't looking at on top of the 5. And so I just really see this contrast you've built for us in that fake really means fake on a whole bunch of levels. And there's a whole lot you're missing out on. And when you're getting a full bouquet of chemistry straight up from the plant, you're getting things that are just beyond our recognition that are just truly remarkable.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. We know, through our labs, because they're testing oils from all over the world. They test anything that's out in the marketplace. We know what is out there, and we know based upon their results. And it's not something that doTERRA publishes. We don't want to, call people out and call their baby ugly. But for us, like having that purity is very, very important. We know that 80% of the essential oils in the marketplace are adulterated, manipulated, contaminated in some way, which makes them dangerous. You must know what's inside your bottle. And so you have that piece, right? Because that makes them unsafe. And then on the flip side, when you say, okay, what if it's missing, that 1%, or maybe it's just a fraction of a percent. If it's missing, a few different constituents, that there is a synergy with them all coming together that determines the outcome. And so do you want optimal benefit or do you want subpar benefit? So you can take a lavender that grows, in my backyard here in Utah. It's going to be a pure lavender, sure, right? But because it's not growing in a Mediterranean climate, you don't have that salty air coming in, you don't have that rich volcanic soil, you're not going to get the esters that you would expect, from that lavender. And so you're not going to get optimal, regenerative, rejuvenating benefit that you would expect from lavender, right? It's not going to calm you the way that you would expect it to. It's not going to help renew your cellular function the way that you would expect it to. And so again, it's both the purity and the potency that are very, very important, and consistency. If we can just hit on that. Because of our vast global network, because we go direct, because we have a sourcing team that travels the world to work directly with our growers, where we know what seeds are going in the ground. We know how the plants are being taken care of. We know the distillation process for each and every oil to make sure we're getting the highest quality essential oil possible. That's not easy. And a lot of people will say, oh, our quality is the same as doTERRA, or we're getting them from the same people that doTERRA is getting their oils from. Ours are 99%.
Liar, pants on fire, right?
Yes, our network is exclusive to us. 99% is exclusive only to doTERRA. So no one else is getting their oils from the same people that are growing our oils. And so that is important. It's an investment. It's an expensive investment. But for us, it's all worth it because we want the greatest benefit. We want everyone to be safe and to get optimal benefit from these oils.
Well, and I think that this is so important because as you go around the world and talk essential oils, you'll often hear people say, "Don't take essential oils internally; they're not safe." And people who are well-knowing practitioners will say, "Don't use essential oils," and there's a reason for that. It's and this is the reason. There's so much corruption in the industry. A professional can't necessarily trust the product, and so this is why you have people pushing back on essential oils in general because nobody's doing
Yes,
this.
and Becky, you'll appreciate this because of your background and having your PhD, that is actually more harmful to inhale an unpure essential oil than it is to ingest it. Right? It's like we know what it's doing, right? So when you're affecting that limbic brain and when you're inhaling toxic chemicals, like you're causing a lot more harm just inhaling. So a lot of people think, oh, they'll put their candle on or whatever it is, or their Glade plugins, and they're using these synthetic fragrances in their home around their babies. We're disrupting our whole endocrine system. So now our hormones are all out of whack. I mean, you're sending all sorts of crazy signals right from that limbic brain and causing all sorts of harm. And so our body actually has more protection mechanisms built in by ingesting than we do by inhaling. So for us, we go by the FDA has grass generally regarded as safe, and so if they list that, right, so let's say peppermint is a great example, again, is on their generally regarded as safe list. So that means that as a company, we can list that as a dietary supplement. But is that good enough, right? Just because FDA has peppermint on their grass list and you list that as a dietary supplement, meaning FDA said it's safe to take internally. So when we're sipping our peppermint tea or what have you, but if you have a synthetic or adulterated or contaminated peppermint that you're now ingesting, that's so dangerous. And so that, again, is why doTERRA has our quality standards. We're certified pure tested grade, where we go through the gamut of over 100 different tests to make sure that peppermint is absolutely pure. So whether you're putting it on your skin, whether you're inhaling it, whether you're ingesting it, you know that peppermint's going to do so much good for your body, and you can feel safe using them on your babies, on your grandbabies. That's what gives me peace of mind as I go to bed at night.
Well, that brings up we need to make note of regulatory bodies. I think the consumer in general has a false perception that there's some big group of people in the sky that have our backs and are testing all these things and know what's under the hood of everybody's products. And they surely wouldn't allow things to come to market that are harmful. And maybe over the last few years, some of that fantasy has started to dissipate. But so many people, doTERRA has even run surveys with consumers that just believe essential oils are of the same quality. Will you speak a little bit more to what the regulations really are and what they really are measuring and aren't, and why it's so important that doTERRA self-governs?
Yes, there is not a governing body, and that's what's frightening. So when we founded doTERRA back in 2008, I'd had a 10-year stint using essential oils as a mother, being deep in as an executive for an essential oil company, and so I got to see what was out there. But back then, essential oils were still very new. There was one larger company and a few little boutique companies, but really outside of that, there wasn't much. Versus today, here we are in 2024, and look how many companies today are selling essential oils. And doTERRA really created that awareness as we entered the scene in 2008, as we brought to market a quality of essential oils that had not existed before. And still today, outside of doTERRA, it does not exist. And so I think because there was all of this excitement because people were getting such great results using doTERRA products, it's like, oh, it was that halo effect of all essential oils must be good. So I'm just going to go to Amazon or my local health food store or what have you, and I'm just going to buy, an essential oil there, and it'll be just as good. And I think there has become and awareness today to realize all essential oils are not created equal. And actually, most of them on the market aren't even an essential oil at all. And so there is no government body that oversees the quality standards for essential oils. Like, yes, the FDA provides that list of, what's generally regarded as safe to list as a dietary supplement. But there's no governing body that we have to run our essential oils by, or that's coming in and testing our oils to make sure they're pure. Now, the FDA and the FTC monitors our claims, right? They make sure that we're not making disease claims. They're really, really clamped down on what we can say about what our products do, but yet they are not monitoring what's inside the bottle. Why? I wish they would. And because no one's doing that, that's why there was no quality standard that existed in the world, still isn't. doTERRA created its own quality standard, certified pure tested grade. And we hold ourselves to the highest gold standard. In fact, when you look at NCNPR, for example, this run out of University of Mississippi, they have deemed doTERRA to have the gold standard. They've tested essential oils from all different brands, and they've come back to say, doTERRA, how is it that you are consistently pure across the board? And so they've come in and partnered with us. We've done many different tests with them, and they've just been blown away and so impressed with what we have done. And we take that as a huge compliment, because they are basically like an FDA agent. And so that is the best compliment that we could possibly receive in regards to our quality. And they have not given that same gold standard to any other brand, because no other brand is showing up consistently pure. You'll have some boutique brands that will have pure oils, but they're not consistently pure. So one month they may have a pure lavender, but the next month it's not a pure lavender. Right? Because they're just buying small little, quantities here and there, and they really don't know what they have. And so when I talk about 80% of the marketplace being adulterated, contaminated, manipulated, that is true. And so that 20%, most of that is doTERRA, right? That falls into the pure. There's a little bit outside of that marketplace that is more of the boutique, but again, it's not consistently pure.
So can I just say thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I have been blessed to use these essential oils for the last 16 years for my own personal health and the health of my family. Now, as you mentioned, the grandchildren that have come along, we have been so greatly blessed because you have stayed true to this mission. And I have to ask you, why did you pick the model of direct sales for this? I think I know the answer, but I want to hear you say it. Why is direct sales the perfect model for distributing such a pure and powerful brand of essential oils?
Yes. So the three of us are all in the same stage of life, right? As mothers, and our children are growing up. My youngest is a senior in high school now. She was 1 year old when we started doTERRA, and now we're in the stage where we're mimis or grandmas. And so for me, it has everything to do with trust, with confidence. So when I look at my little grandchildren, and as I see them reach for serenity or lavender or calmer before they go to bed, because they all have to have it, they won't go to sleep without it. For me, it is that confidence to know, I know I'm doing something so good for their body, and I know that it's safe, and I know that they're going to benefit from it. And that is everything. So you say, why is doTERRA important? Like, we have families ourselves, and having that security is everything in this world. We've seen our world in recent years get turned upside down. And what has brought me comfort is to know I have tools I can turn to take care of my family. And so as you gain these stories, right, these experiences, as we use these oils, it's natural for us to want to share them with other people, right? So as we hear other people with maybe some health challenges, or they're struggling because their little one won't go to sleep at night, we naturally want to share, hey, have you tried this? Or we have a powerful story with frankincense, and of course, we want to share that with other people. So when we started doTERRA, we started with just 5 pure oils. We started with peppermint, lavender, lemon, tea tree. Did I say lavender? Which one did I miss? Peppermint, lemon, lavender,
Frankincense?
frankincense. Yes, those 5. Um, and we knew if we had no more than just those 5 pure oils, that was enough, right? That we could change people's life just with those 5 oils. And we didn't have a model picked out as to how we were going to distribute these oils or share these oils. We just knew we had to have these precious oils for ourselves. And as we went out and started sharing with other people, and as they would open up the bottle and they would have these amazing experiences, and they would ask us, could you please come to my home? Could you please come and share with other people what these essential oils can do for them? And as we did that, as we watched people share and saw their health transformed, like, okay, this can't be, we can't put this in a brochure. We can't put this on a billboard. And back then we didn't have social media, but today, like, how could you possibly explain what frankincense can do for you just through social media? You couldn't do that, or through social selling. It really is me sharing my story with you, you having an amazing experience, and now you want to share that experience with someone else. And so we chose to share these powerful, powerful gifts of the earth through the power of people. And what I love is what has happened by building community by doing this. As we now are lifting each other up and we're sharing our experiences, we're sharing our stories, we're increasing our wisdom and our knowledge. And that, like in education, that's the greatest power in the world, isn't it? Right? That gives us that confidence as mothers, as grandmothers, as human beings. Like, we want to know what's best for us, what's best for our families. And so I am so proud of our business model. It's the most beautiful
So
thing
I
I've ever
personally
seen.
love the model that you chose, because I feel like there's a lot of misinformation in our world today. And it seems like we're able to build more understanding and trust with people who we do know and trust. And so being able to share authentic experiences and not just have to do your research and kind of get through all of the misinformation that exists in our world, this model has worked really well. Also, I just have to say, from a mental health perspective, building communities, as you said, brilliant, because there's so much, as you are well aware, so much research on loneliness right now and how people need people. And social media and technology has pulled people away from each other. So a direct sales model offering women in particular, although we have lots of men who sell doTERRA, that female entrepreneurship opportunity that exists for women who are home with their children, it's just been a brilliant business model. So again, thank you for all that you have created with doTERRA. If you were to look at your vast experience in the direct sales industry, you're an expert in essential oils now after all the years that you have worked in the field. Is there something you're burning to tell everyone about the essential oil industry and your experience with doTERRA that everyone needs to know? Like, what is it that everyone who's listening or watching needs to hear?
All right, Becky, that is a big question. And if I've learned nothing more than this in my last 30 years of going on this wellness journey, is we must take charge of our own health. No one else is going to do that, right? There's not another physician on the planet that's going to care more about your health than you do. There's no one who knows your body more than you do. And by using essential oils, what I have learned is how to listen to what my body needs in the moment. And I love that I get to tap into that to know, do I need lavender today? Do I need wild orange today? Do I need frankincense today? And to know, no matter what I'm going through, that I can turn to nature, and knowing that that's going to support me. It's going to support me physically. It's going to support me mentally. It's going to support me emotionally and even spiritually. And that is powerful. Because in the day and age that we are living in today and what we are being exposed to, all of those stressors that we are dealing with, outside stressors, internal stressors, we must be prepared, which means we must be educated and we must know what we're putting in and on our body so that we are ready for anything. And as I look at how my health has transformed from when you look at me at 34 years old in 2008, when we founded doTERRA, to where I am today at 51 years old, I am younger biologically today than I was at 34 years old. I am stronger. I have more vitality. You can look at pictures side by side, you can see it. And I love that I can do that for myself because I want to be enjoying my grandbabies 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, and to be able to have the health and strength to be able to do that. And I think that's what all of us want. And so know what you have, be empowered. And that's what I love about the community of doTERRA is you have an advocate right there for you, a wellness advocate who's educating you all along this wellness journey because we learn line upon line. It's not like you wake up one morning, it's like, okay, I know exactly what to do. Like, no, we get to learn in community, we get to heal in community, and that is such a beautiful thing.
You remind me, I love the Hawaiian concept of ha, breath, right? And as direct marketers, as we've so beautifully spoken about, we're passing on ha, right? We're passing on breath, we're breathing life, which can't happen from a shelf, right? Two bottles sitting next to each other, they don't have the capacity to tell you, well, here's who I really am and here's who I really am. That's why we're here to pass that on. And with that concept, knowing what we know, that a frankincense tree has been so terrifically stressed at 125 degrees in the desert of Somalia and has developed some profound chemistry that it's now offering to us so we can endure our own stressors, that we get to be that ha for the next person. And so our storytelling, our experience sharing is so vital in what we're doing. It's a passing on, it kind of is like a folklore, right? Of passing on tradition. So in that, I know one of the things that we both feel is so valuable is because, you've had your own stresses, Emily. You travel the world, you run a large company, you got family, all the things that we relate to in some way, shape, or form. Breathe some life into a daily routine for those with us. Because you do develop that intuition, right? It's who I am. It's what I do to turn to plants and to nature. It's my absolute linked arms with all solutions in my life. But that's something we've developed a knack for or an art form over time. So if you're speaking to someone who's newer at this or doesn't have that same confidence, the breath isn't there for them, will you breathe life into this idea of how you make your selections, what some of your most important basic choices are, and help them develop that same sense for themselves?
Yes, no, absolutely. It's hard for me to distill it down to just a few without overwhelming you
No pun
because I
intended,
use so
right?
much
Distill
free
it
product.
down. Sorry, I couldn't get. You said it's hard to distill it down. I'm like, that's such an essential oil phrase. Sorry.
It's who I am. But let me start with maybe some basics that have been really, really helpful on my health journey. So when I wake up in the morning, first thing I do is I go outside with bare feet and I get my feet in the grass on the ground. And grounding. There's scientific evidence of what that does for just our body rhythm, just to help our body do what it needs to do. But in doing that, I will take Balance essential oil, right? It's our grounding blend, our alignment blend, and I will put it on the bottoms of my feet, on the back of my neck. I put it in my hands and I inhale it in, and it's amazing how my body goes, there you are, right? Like everything just comes together. Um, Wild orange is one that I love to inhale in. It's been one of my favorites from the beginning of doTERRA. It still is. As I inhale that in, I'll turn my diffuser on first thing in the morning, or you can be your own human diffuser, right? Again, it's doing this. And what that does just to awaken the brain. I mean, you've got the high limonene, so it's going to cleanse those cell receptors so they can communicate properly. But it just immediately takes us into that happy state of, I got this, right? Life, I don't care what you throw at me. I've got this. And so that's one that I love. You talk about the the breath. We have one called Breathe. So you can breathe, or eucalyptus or peppermint, anything that has that 1,8-cineol or menthol on the chest, under the nose, is just going to really help open up as a vasodilator, right? Help us have that feeling of just easy, open breathing. Right, it's going to be oxygenating to the cells, so that's a wonderful way to start out the day. Supplementation also has been very important to me. So outside of my essential oils, I rely heavily on the Lifelong Vitality Pack. You've got to have your micronutrients if you want your essential oils to work optimally. Because if you're depleted nutritionally, the essential oils can't do their best work for you. And so that's very important. Also, the MetaPower Advantage, which is the marine collagen, 70% tripeptides. We're actually, it's bioavailable. We're actually absorbing it versus most of the collagen on the market. We're just peeing it out, right? It's just going through the system. So ours, we're actually taking that right in. And that has been amazing for me, for my skin, for my hair, for my bone growth, but also just for my lean muscle mass, for my focus, for my energy level. It's been awesome. So those supplements, I could go through so many others that are key. The PB Restore, got to have that for help the all over biome, not just gut, but skin, mouth, oral biome. Very, very important. I am obsessed with frankincense, rose, and yarrow palm for my skin. Immortelle, like, give me all of those things. So that it's all over my face, décolleté. I'll put it in with my moisturizer. Very cell protecting and cell renewing. And so again, we want to age backwards. So those are some of my absolute favorites. Serenity, right? As you get ready to go to sleep at night, if you're not getting sufficient quality sleep, you're aging and you're jacking your cortisol levels up. And so how can we prevent that from happening, right? When your cortisol levels go up, you're not producing the other vital hormones that we need in the body. You are compromising your hair growth cycle. So you're going to lose hair. You're going to produce more sebaceous oil. So you're going to have oily, greasy hair, oily, greasy skin. But if you're getting optimal sleep, now all of a sudden you don't have those issues. You're producing the hormones, all those happy hormones that you need as well. You're going to have less fine lines and wrinkles. You're going to have better elasticity of the skin. All of the organs function better. So Serenity. I love the Serenity stick. I love the Serenity oil in my diffuser. And my trifecta for sleep has been the Serenity soft gel, Copaiba soft gel, and the Adaptive soft gel. Has been those three are just fantastic. I have been one that has not slept well, and it was catching up with me as I'm traveling all over the world and taking care of doTERRA and my family. And this has been an absolute game changer for me. So I have to just focus on a few. I mean, we could talk for hours on all of the products that I have to use, but those are some of my absolute favorites. And of course, you can't forget copaiba and frankincense under the tongue. Those have been amazing for me.
I have to say, it's like the lights, I think, come on in all of us when we start to talk about product usage, because one thing that we all love are doTERRA products. And definitely, as you said, Emily, as I have aged, I have benefited in many of the same ways that you have. And I would say that our consumers, that you bring up a really important point for all of our viewers, listeners out there, that the consumer has to be aware right now that self-reliance in healthcare is the way. And I think we've seen that, especially over the last 4 years with all that's happened across the world in healthcare. If not for the last 2 decades, it's been there, but I think it's been more magnified. And so getting familiar, trying all of these different protocols, finding out what's the right thing, the right fit for you and for your body, gaining the knowledge in your communities to be able to have the answers to that information. All of this is so critical. And you've led the way for that, Emily, as the president, now chairman of the board, founder of the company, all the titles that have gone with that. But I think for me, one of the things that's most impressive about you has been that you're no different than me, in the sense that you've also been just a woman, just raising kids and having grandchildren and trying to feel good and trying to run a company all at the same time. And you have done it brilliantly. And so thank you. Thank you again for all that you've created for of so many users of doTERRA products. I mean, we should mention that you're a multi-billion-dollar company now, the largest supplier of essential oils in the world. Your vision, your dreams have led a movement that has changed the entire industry. There's a lot to celebrate here in what you've done, but I love your humanness and that you've just been real with us about what you do, and hope all of our viewers and listeners take note, start to use these same protocols and see how they work for you. Any last thoughts that you would share with our viewers, our listeners?
How you treat your body today will determine your health tomorrow. So some will say, "Oh, it's too late for me." It's never too late. And so be very cognizant of what you're saying to yourself, how you're treating your body, what you're doing for yourself, because that will determine how you're feeling tomorrow, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And so I'm excited just to know what I'm doing for myself today will give me that vitality that I want 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. So start today, because you are worth it. Every single person is worth it. And what you do for your body speaks volumes to yourself of your self-worth.
I love that. That's such a beautiful invitation. Again, gratitude abounds. It really brings to mind that so often people approach health and wellness and they think, oh, I can't afford to. And really what we're here to witness is you can't afford not to, right? As busy moms,
Exactly.
grandmas, women who run businesses, women who are, you know, seeking to make a contribution to our community. It really, in anything that we're involved in, we're seeking to add to the world and make it a better place. And we can't do it if we don't feel well. And there's so many people that don't feel well. And so to all the people that we've had the opportunity to interact with and to share these possibilities, they would all stand by our side and say, you can't afford not to. And so our invitation is try it, right? I'm with you on biological age. I'm the old woman in the group, right? At a rousing 61. And when I look at my journey, as a health and wellness expert, right? I've been doing this for 30 years as well, in and outside of doTERRA. I can't imagine my life without it. And I too want to just stand by Becky's side and thank you for your unbelievable dedication to this cause and your unapologetic pursuit of purity in such a way that we have potency, we have consistency, we have safety, and that as a wellness advocate, we can stand with confidence that not only do we have that comfort that you mentioned about using it in our own home, that we have total confidence in sharing with others that they too can achieve results that just exceed not only their expectations, but their imaginations.
I think yes, essential oils have continued to amaze me. As a little girl, I would get bored with things very, very quickly, and I would never perfect them. I would, get things done good enough, and then I was on to the next thing. I always wanted to learn something new. But in almost 30 years, I continue to be fascinated with essential oils. You have their complexity, which I'll never fully understand all the complexity, right, within essential oils and all the synergy and all the things that are happening. And even as we're furthering science into pharmacokinetics and epigenetics and all of the things that we're learning about essential oils, that we're going into areas no one else has gone into. But yet I also love and appreciate the simplicity. You don't need to know anything. You don't need to understand the chemistry. You don't need to understand the science. You simply just need to take the bottle, right, and put it on. And it's like you can feel what's happening within your body. And I love that it can be that simple as well. So yes, I love all the things that we've talked about today. And I love you two ladies with all of my heart.
Thank you so much, Emily, for being here with us today. And thank you for all that you've given to our lives as a friend, but as a leader of such an incredible movement that has changed the lives of so many around the world. And for you, our viewer, our listeners, we hope that this message and these thoughts have changed your life, that you'll take something home from this conversation. Actually, I would suggest that the thing you take home is the thing that Emily was burning to tell you, which is that self-reliance in your healthcare is a thing. It's probably the most important thing that you can do for yourself and your family. Thanks again for joining us for the Experience Wellness podcast, and we'll see you next time on our next episode. Take care. Bye-bye.